in into this very, very interesting discussion that's going to take place for the next 2 hours. If you haven't been briefed before, or if you didn't really notice why you are here, it's very simple. This is a new normal, and we have real need to understand, be aware, take proactive actions from the topmost leader to every single person in the country on how we are going forward to live with virus SARS-CoV-2 or the pandemic of COVID-19, because we are already at the stage where the vaccination activation around the world are going as fast as they can. And we are hearing more and more that the world is moving from the pandemic stage to the endemic stage. What does all this mean in terms of vaccination? Because at the same time, the different capacities and the different levels of management and activation on this means certain countries are reaching past 90%
Recording in progress
in the country being vaccinated, but other countries, for example, are not even at 10 or 20%. WHO has reiterated just a few weeks ago, or even a few months ago at the beginning, where they have announced moratorium on the booster. At first, WHO put the moratorium until September, and then they extend it until the end of the year. But we do know, just matters of days ago, the President of the United States of America in the live telecast showed him being given a booster shot. And at that same time, while being given the booster shot, he said that the United States of America has rolled out vaccination shots of more than 1,100,000,000 doses. And we all know that the population of America is not 1 billion, it's not even 500 million. So that means that they have gotten shots, including booster shots. But at the same time, the much awaited in September of announcements by the Food and Drug Administration in America, or the FDA, and the CDC, for example, on the application by the vaccine makers like Pfizer, for example, was actually given the permission under the EUA. And, you know, by now we know that the whole of the Pfizer vaccine is now been approved. But the booster shot was given more and allowed to be given more for the immunocompromised recipients. But other countries have also their own way of handling it, including our neighbors like Singapore, near neighbors, and Indonesia. And without further ado, I just will be glad that all this complexity that sounds very deep, very scientific, and very technical will be made easy for us to understand today through 3 key international speakers. And these countries have a lot of immersion at the front lines and deep research into the pandemic and the virus. So we'll be hearing from subject matter experts from as far away as Chile in South America. And I thank our panel from there because they are in the evening compared to us in early morning here. And of course, we will be joined also from the subject matter expert from China. And then closer to home in Malaysia is the subject matter expert from Indonesia. After the first round of a forum format where each speaker will be presenting their key points and perspectives, we will be moving to the second round where we will be sitting down in the chit-chat or discussion. Another speaker will be added to the fray to give Malaysian context and local relevance. And then we'll be going to the Q&A session, especially fielding questions from the media. Without further ado, I would like to introduce first my co-moderator, because this is quite a complex topic with technical expertise involved. So Dr. Badrul Hisham Abdul Rahman, I'm just going to call him Doc Bud for today, the dashing, very scientific subject matter expert on vaccine and the manufacturing of vaccines and the rollout of vaccines. Dr. Bud, you've been to Johns Hopkins and all, but I'll give you the few minutes to introduce yourself and why you're very interested today to be co-moderating this.
Thank you, Cam. Assalamualaikum, good morning, everyone. As the head of the R&D for Pharmanaga, I'll be excited to introduce 4 panel speakers for today. They are all a strategic partner for Pharmanaga. key to the successful registration and implementation of COVID-19 vaccination program in Malaysia. All of you have now fully aware that we have achieved more than 90% vaccination rate for adults in Malaysia, and we are now free to move around in the country. These are nothing but from the support from all of the panel and our strategic partner across the world. Our history, we started in January 2021 when we had the technology transfer. But for today, we look forward to hear more technical data from around the world, from China, from Chile, and also from Indonesia. So that we look forward what is there for booster and children use. Yeah. Thank you so much. Back to you, Cam.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bat. I apologize if there are sounds interfering in, but you know, the digital world sometimes sounds just crisscross, but we do not get our technical data, our scientific R&D cross on the matter of COVID vaccination. It's very clear. Now we even have real world data in many countries to benchmark, to compare to the clinical studies data. But what do I know about this? Dr. Bat has had to go and do a PhD at Johns Hopkins to talk more. So we allow other subject matter experts, like I want to introduce my 3 international panel for today. And very, very far away is Dr. Alexis M. Kalagis. He's the professor and director of the Millennium Institute on Immunology and Immunotherapy, way there in Chile. Of course, he wears many other hats, academia and all others. I will let him go into it later. And then also we have a very good friend from China, Wening Meng. I personally would like to thank you for making it possible for Malaysia to really have close R&D relationship. And from there, successively, we see a very successful rollout of a Sinovac vaccines into Malaysia. My own family suffered the tragedy of being infected by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. I lost a family member. If only we could have gotten the vaccination sooner. So that has always been the thinking in my mind. So this kind of discussion, I think, is very, very crucial, not only for this pandemic, but any future pandemic that might come. So to compliment Mr. Wening Meng, who has more than 18 years experience in biopharmaceutical industry. And, you know, if you were to talk to anyone about vaccine around the world, you have to talk to Wening Meng, because he looks at overseas or international market for his company. And that is a very strategic vantage point, because Sinovac is global. Last but not least, our saudara serumpun dan jiran tetangga, Dr. Rahman Rostan, the operational director of PT Biopharma Holding. He's also the vice chairman of OIC, Vaccine Management Group. Last year's academic career, Pajajaran, ITB dan sebagainya. I would like to welcome Dr. Rahman Rostan also, because we share deep-rooted cultural and socio-economic relationship with Indonesia, and Indonesia had clinical studies done, among the few countries in the world. So we want to get his perspective too. Without further ado, I will start the first round. Dr. Bat, if you don't mind, I want to start the first round, and Dr. Bat will be listening keenly, because I do not have the ear to pick out the technical and scientific data like Dr. Bat. But after each speaker, Dr. Bat will help us understand more, because he will pick out his own favorite points from all the three key presentations. Without further ado, very far away from South America, I would like to invite Dr. Alexis to give his perspective. Over to you, Dr. Alexis.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to this very interesting workshop. So if I'm able to share my screen, so if you could just give me permission to share my screen, I could. So the person that is the host of the meeting needs to allow me to share my screen.
The backend team, can we please help Dr. Alexis to get control over the screen?
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so very much. So I will briefly and quickly present the work we've been doing here in Chile in terms of a scientific and clinical study. But first, I'd like to begin mentioning that pandemics have been with the human race for many years, and thanks to vaccination, they have been controlled, such as the case for smallpox that was eradicated in the late 70s thanks to vaccination. And the same has been taking place with polio, measles, rubella, and mumps. Every time vaccines are included in the population, there's a significant reduction of the cases. So we all agree that vaccines, in terms of coverage, are able to reduce the incidence of diseases of different kinds. There is a big gap of equality between developing countries and industrialized countries. And we have published a paper a few years ago in 2018 showing that the local manufacturing of vaccines is very important to promote vaccination in the countries. And so in our region, Latin America, only countries like Brazil, Argentina, Cuba, and Mexico have the chances to produce their own vaccines. So we have tackled that challenge by a collaboration with Sinovac in terms of reestablishing a capacity that Chile had until the late 90s, early 2000s for the manufacturing of vaccines. And we're working on this very exciting project at the moment. In addition,
Recording stopped.
To the COVID-19 pandemic that has been very catastrophic for the planet, we very early decided to go into using the knowledge we have in terms of making vaccines here in Chile based on a platform that we have published on BCG. We published a paper early on showing that countries that have a tuberculosis
Recording
vaccine,
in progress.
Program based on BCG usually have lower rates of COVID-19 cases in the few weeks after the initiation of the outbreak. And we think that this has to do with the proper training of the immune response by vaccines. And this research that we've been doing in Chile, thanks to the work of many young scientists, has led to important papers, but also significant notes that are in very prestigious venues like Nature and the New York Times that highlight the work that we've been doing here in Chile. So based on this experience, we initiated a collaboration with Sinovac in 2019, right before the pandemic, thanks to the chance we have in an international Congress on Immunology that took place in Beijing 2019, where we showed our data on the RSV vaccine that we had previously published. And based on that initial contact and confronted with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to establish a collaboration with Sinovac, and they very early published their discovery of an inactivated vaccine for the SARS-CoV-2, and this paper in Science described the methodology for making the vaccine and also the preclinical studies that they perform in different animal models like mice, rats, and monkeys. Then they went on and just carry out two different clinical studies in adults and young adults and also elderly that were published in Lancet Infectious Diseases, showing safety and immunogenicity for this vaccine in this population. So along those, very few early months of the pandemic, we established this collaboration with between the Catholic University in Chile and Sinovac, and that led to the initiation of the design of a phase 3 trial that was submitted to the ethical committees and the Chilean regulatory agency, and was approved in September 2020, leading to the initiation of this trial that was properly registered in clinicaltrials.gov. And in this trial, several different sites were part of the study, and we have 2 different stages. We have a very significant effort on understanding the immunogenicity of the vaccine, as well as the follow-up for safety of the volunteers that were part of the study. And we found a very good safety. I mean, almost no difference between the controls and the people that received the vaccine. And in terms of immunogenicity, we found that 2 weeks after the second dose, significant levels of antibodies were detected both in adults and elderly population. And we probably communicated those results very early this year, actually in March of 2021. And again, in terms of neutralizing antibodies, we found that again 2 weeks after the second dose of CoronaVac, we were able to detect significant levels of neutralizing antibodies, both in the entire population as well as the population that was over 60. And that data was just recently published in Clinical Infectious Diseases, showing that in significant levels of total anti-spike and anti-N antibodies could be detected 2 weeks after the second dose, as well as up to several weeks after the first dose. Also, we were able to measure the neutralizing capacity of these antibodies by 3 different methods, using a surrogate technique for neutralization, a pseudovirus, and actually the wild-type virus, where we found significant neutralization capacity for these antibodies 2 weeks after the second dose. We also made a very thorough detection of T-cell immunity, and we found significant level of CD4 T cells able to recognize antigens from SARS-CoV-2 in vaccinated people. And finally, in terms of data from this early study, we found that those few cases of COVID-19 we had in the study had increased levels of antibodies and T cells after the infection with SARS-CoV-2. As I said, we have a very low rate of infection, about 2% in the entire study, but those people that were infected and had previously received the vaccine, they showed a very strong memory response, able to neutralize the virus. And again, in terms of T-cell immunity, we found, of course, T-cells after vaccination, but the number of T-cells increased significantly after the vaccinated people were exposed to the virus present in the community. And this paper was recently published in Frontiers in Immunology. So several articles have been accepted, published, or recently submitted from this study in Chile. The main conclusions is that the vaccine is well tolerated with very low reactogenicity, especially in people over 60 years of age. No significant, no serious adverse effects due to the vaccine. And we found antibodies with the capacity to neutralize the virus, and also T cells able to produce gamma interferon in response to the viral antigens. So this data and this collaboration had led to a strengthening of the capacities here in Chile to carry out basic and clinical research. And of course, the collaboration with other countries such as Brazil, Turkey, and Indonesia led to this multi-center study that was very important to promote the early access to Chile to the vaccine for COVID-19 that was made by Sinovac. And this vaccine was approved for emergency use early in 2021, in January, leading to the arrival of the doses needed to initiate the mass vaccination campaign that led to have Chile as the countries that were most efficiently vaccinated in their population, with some early results in terms of effectiveness. That was later actually accomplished basically due to the collaboration with Sinovac, where many millions of vaccine doses were given to the population in the country. And if you see in this graph, most of the vaccines that have been received here by Chilean population are from Sinovac. And if you follow the trend of COVID-19 cases, a few months after the vaccination campaign was initiated, the number of cases went down, and now we're actually in a very good scenario in terms of the COVID-19 situation at the moment in the country due to the immunity obtained after massive vaccination with vaccines, mostly again from Sinovac. And the data that was obtained from the Ministry of Health in Chile that was published also showed a very significant effectiveness for the vaccine in the real world, over 65%, all the way to 90%, depending on the parameter that was measured. And for safety, the frequency of adverse effects from the vaccines that have been used in Chile, definitely the vaccine from Sinovac, CoronaVac, is the one that has shown the lowest number of side effects. So in conclusion, the experience here in Chile has shown that Sinovac vaccine is safe and immunogenic. We contributed to establishing that 2 doses are required and 2 weeks after the second dose are needed to reach significant neutralizing antibody levels. And the data on safety, immunogenicity, and efficacy from controlled scientific clinical trials have been able to predict well the performance of the vaccine in the real-world scenario in the population in terms of safety, immunogenicity, and effectiveness. So we already have data about lasting immunity. I'll show you that in a minute. This has led to the discussion about additional booster doses and whether the vaccine is able to neutralize the current and future coronavirus variants. Also have data about that. And of course, very important, the safety, immunogenicity, and efficacy in the pediatric population. So what we found is just in the 2 different schemes, 6 months after the initial dose, the antibody levels and T-cell levels specific for SARS-CoV-2 antigens there's a decline, which is expected due to the time that goes after the exposure to the vaccine or the virus, which is expected to be that way. And but having that the case, the capacity of the antibodies to recognize the different variants remains present. So we see recognition of all the variants, especially the ones circulating that have been circulating in Chile. And when a third dose of the vaccine is given inside our study to the cohort, there is a significant increase in the number of both antibodies and T cells recognizing the virus, especially the difference between the 6 months after the first dose or and then 4 weeks after the third dose. There's about a 10-fold increase in the titers of antibodies recognizing the virus. And also they have the capacity to neutralize the virus. So the third dose is pretty efficient at inducing antibodies recognizing the virus. And we just had submitted this article for publication. Now, although the vaccination in the adult population has moved forward very efficiently, countries with significant levels of adult population vaccinated, they are confronting the problem of infection in the pediatric population. That's because in Chile, a few months after we have initiated the design of a clinical study for the pediatric population, the regulatory agency approved the use of this vaccine from CoronaVac from 6-year-old and older children. And this vaccine campaign is moving along with very good data in terms of safety. In parallel, we're doing this multi-center clinical study. In Chile, the ages studied are from 3 years old to 17, but there are countries that are going from 6 months and up to 17 years of age. So based on this very strong basic research, clinical research, with the support of the public and private sector and the collaboration, international collaboration between Sinovac Catholic University and the trust of the citizens, significant data has been obtained that had led to increased confidence on vaccines use, and the coverage here in Chile is pretty high. We reach 90% of the objective population being vaccinated. So I just like to thank the people that have done the work. For the adult study, most of the organization was in charge of 5 medical doctors or scientific doctors that are currently working on this study. And for the pediatric study, the group is bigger because the study is larger, and many young scientists, young clinicians, and nurses are being part of this study. So thank you very much, and that is what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you so much, Prof. Alexis. Very exciting data from Chile. Thank you for sharing the information related to the importance of the government recognizing
Recording stopped.
early access to vaccine. Since Chile government have access to the capability to manufacture your own vaccine, the government were able to have technology transfer from Sinovac. If I could summarize, because the privilege that Chile, part of the global players in doing clinical trial, very important information have been generated from this study to confirm that the vaccine is actually very safe and very efficacious. And now that with the booster dose, the vaccine are still able to recognize even variant of concern, and the level of antibody is actually very, very high. Then you have also shared some information related to the use of in pediatric population. Okay, back to you, Cam.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. But very keen insight from you. I just would like to reiterate to many people like me that haven't enjoyed going to Chile. Chile has long history of success in vaccination. They were the earliest to eradicate smallpox on average compared to other countries around the world by 27 years, 3 decades nearly. And they were the third in the world to get to control polio through vaccination successfully. So my questions to Dr. Alexis, among them would be, because you started earlier by that partnership with Sinovac, for example, now you have sets of data, both from the clinical trials and from the real world data. And you did Chile did commission study. Like it or not, there's politics and geopolitics. And, sometimes there's this skepticism from the West towards anything from Asia, and the same goes for vaccines. So there was a study commissioned in Chile on the effectiveness and efficacy of the Sinovac vaccine, for example. Can you give us a little bit more about that from the findings done? Because I think you're looking at huge sets of numbers, like 10 million people. Over to you, Dr. Alexis.
Right, so the effectiveness was pretty good, considering that the people that received the vaccine at the beginning were mostly the elderly. So the first numbers were 67% to prevent symptomatic COVID-19 cases, up to like over 85% to prevent ICU requirement or death. And those numbers stayed up. They started to decline, I would say a few months, about 6 months after the initiation of the campaign, as it's been also observed for other vaccines. And that led the government to support a third dose approach, or a booster dose. And the data from the effectiveness of the booster dose is really, really impressive. It goes up to 80% effectiveness to prevent symptomatic COVID-19 cases. Yeah. So clearly having a strong immune response place is able to lead to protection against the virus. And keep in mind that the degree of or the frequency of adverse effects with an inactivated virus vaccine are pretty low. So if you put in the balance effectiveness together with safety, it's clearly it's been a very positive experience here with that vaccine.
Two more quick questions as follow-up, Dr. Alexis. One, because you started rolling out, I think there's more than 36 million doses already administered in Chile for a population of roughly, 19 million? So clearly, the booster has been in place. We know that the FDA only give approval to Pfizer for people who are immunocompromised and, maybe older than 65, for example. What is the policy in Chile, and from the rollout, what has been the experience? Is it open to everyone, all adults, for the booster, or how is it?
So they initiating the boosters for, again, in the order of the calendar that the vaccines were given. So everybody is going to end up receiving a booster dose here. I mean, it's volunteer. Okay. It's a voluntary vaccination. Okay. Getting the shot as well, getting the booster shot is voluntary. So hopefully most people will get it. And the compliance. I mean, people complying with the either the first, second dose and the booster dose has been very high.
Yes. So the approach in Chile is, get as much protection, and booster is definitely one of the way to go. For the experience, because many countries in the world still have not vaccinated those who are below 17 or 18, for example. But I think in Chile, 6 years old and plus, as you have put in your presentation. So one is, what gives the confidence for Chile to have vaccination for people below 18 and 17, even as young as 6? And what has been the finding from there, Dr. Alexis?
Right. So first experience in China, where the vaccine was approved for 3 years and older, and several million people got the vaccine from the pediatric population in China with very good safety results. And also here in Chile, the inactivated vaccines are very commonly used for diseases like polio, hepatitis, etc. So there is long-lasting experience using inactivated vaccines.
Okay.
So there were, many expert recommendations from the advisory committee, from the Ministry of Health, and also from the scientific community. They supported the approval for emergency approval for the vaccine from 6 years and older. And the process has been going on very efficiently, and adverse effects have been very rare. So the process is actually moving well.
Okay.
And of course, in our study, we're getting very good data in terms of safety, and soon we'll have some data in terms of immunogenicity.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Alexis. The reason I asked you a bit more question because I understand the situation there. And if you have to withdraw from this conversation, at least we get something through. But if you can stay, I would very much like to know more. There's many things that we want to know about Chile and also Chile's move in vaccination, both for booster and also for the pediatric side or for the children. But Dr.
And it's important to keep in mind, that countries where the vaccination adults have been really, moving forward, are showing more and more cases of pediatric COVID-19 hospitalizations. For example, in the US, it's reaching 30%. So that sort of emphasizes the importance of developing safe and effective vaccines for the pediatric population.
Understood. Very important point and very scary for parents like me. When it happens to our young, it never disturbs you more than anything like that. So, which is a nice transition, Dr. Bat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you look at epidemiology also. For the layman understanding is very simple. Virus, just like us, they want to survive. So SARS-CoV-2 want to go into as many hosts or humans as possible so that it can continue to live. And in order to do that, they will go and infect as many people as they want. But having vaccine or vaccinated people gives them a hurdle, like a wall that stops them from infecting us. So that means that now in the world, there are lesser and lesser people that they can easily infect. And lesser people mean their survival rate is going down. However, because they are creation of God too, and they are very good at evolving, so they will now, there's a belief that they are now tending to look at the unvaccinated. And because around the world, most of the vaccinated are adult population, so maybe that's why there's a correlation to like the data that Dr. Alexis say, that the children population are now seeing more cases. Can the layman see it that way also, Dr. But before I move nicely to China?
Yeah, true. there's a logical way. The virus need a host to replicate.
Yes.
And then if the infection rate in the adult who are mostly protected or immunized, the exposure to the children or pediatric population is higher risk.
Yes.
But people tend to confuse between the disease and infection. They are two different things. A lot of death or ICU cases is not directly because of the infection, but the
complications.
Complication related to infection.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. And I work in the media, and it's always the information from the West that dominates. So it's really enlightening for me to hear directly of points and facts and scientific findings from China. And with great pleasure, I would like to now invite Mr. Wei Ningmeng, the Overseas Business Senior Director of Sinovac Biotech Company Limited from China. Over to you, Mr. Wei Ningmeng.
Yeah, thank you thank you, host, for your introduction. So can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it's clear. Go ahead, Winnie.
Okay. So firstly, it's an honor for me and to talk with a friend from Maniaga, also from Malaysia, and also thanks Alexis. Actually, we are doing together in the past a few years for the project, and also I'm glad to see and currently by large using of the CoronaVac, and we already have quite a few good achievement in several countries, including Chile and Malaysia, Indonesia, and so on. So firstly, I just give you the more big pictures about the current status of this CoronaVac globally. And so far, we already got more than 50 emergency use, conditional approval, and marketing authorizations certificate from different countries. And also the vaccine already been listed by WHO for the EUL, and also we are the participant for COVAX. Currently already, I think millions doses supplied to COVAX to other countries. And so far, totally, Sinovac already supplied over 2 billion doses of CoronaVac to the world. And from that point, we should clarify that currently CoronaVac is the biggest widely used COVID vaccine in the world. And among them, over 810 million doses already be distributed to the countries outside China. And in China, in my country, about 1.2 billion doses were used. I mean, 1.2 billion of CoronaVac used in China. And well, you can see besides of this large use of vaccines, also together with others, very strict quarantine and others control measurement in China. And so far, the number of active cases is very low. Every day, just 10 to 20 cases, and most of them are import cases. So, and then I would like to give you some information from different aspects. First, today we are talking about the booster. So why we need booster, and let's see the data from the first and second shot. So this is data coming our phase 1, phase 2. Similar with Professor Alex data in Chile. Also in our phase 2 and phase 1 in the population of China, we see after second dose, 6 months after second, roughly 6 months after first dose, and we see the antibody level dropping down, and especially in the elderly people over 60 years old. But the good data is actually from pediatric. From pediatric, we use the same dosage of vaccine, and after 2 doses. So far, we also got the 6 months data, and from the 6 months data after 2 shots, in the pediatric population, the antibody level is still quite high. So maybe for the pediatric population, the booster can be considering much later than the adult population. So because of that, we are also conduct the booster studies. This is also from the phase 1, phase 2 trial, and from the same cohort of the one I present. And after give the third dose, we see the antibody level increase a lot sharply. So no matter previously, the primary vaccination schedule is 0-14 day schedule and 0-28 day schedule. So after 6 months, and they give the booster dose, and then the antibody titer, antibody neutralization antibody titer even can increase 20 times comparing the previously. And we also find actually if this is also happened in the elderly people. Previously, I mentioned that for the elderly people, after 2 shots, and then the antibody will be dropping even larger than the adult population. But after the booster dose, 6 months or 8 months after a second shot, we give the booster, and then we still see a very nice jumping of the antibody level. And this actually this antibody titer is better than the primary 2 shot. And we also see we also comparing the different time we give the booster, because in China currently we don't have virus in the country, so it's quite convenient for us to evaluate the booster shot, give the different time. So we are comparing the 6 months to 8 months after second dose, and then 1 year after second dose. We see, and actually longer we give the booster, even can induce a higher antibody level. But actually, this is just we just provide the data, and different countries have different situation. For if the countries are still suffering very high level indication of COVID, I actually people need really considering need a balance, early booster or later booster, especially for the elderly people, for the high risk people. Still, we suggest the booster should be given 6 months roughly after second dose. And also, so previously we know for the primary vaccination, then the antibody level will lasting several months and then dropping down. But after boost dose, how long the antibody can maintain? We also have the data, 6 months data after the third dose, after boost dose. Because I think after 1-2 shot, the body already have a memory of immune. So the booster, when the booster given, either we can give give the very high level antibody. Also, we can get quite stable antibody. Even after 6 months, the third dose, we see that the level is still much higher than the peak of the second dose. So that is also encourage us a lot about the strategy of the booster dose and to against this COVID. And although previously I mentioned that different time we give a different booster, and then we will see the different level. We comparing 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And the data shows us the longer have a better, the longer part for the booster and can give a better antibody. But still, as I mentioned, that will should be balanced by the decision makers, depending on the different situations. So that is just from the human clinical studies. We are also collaborate with the academic institutes and scientists to find out some what is the real reason why the booster give a higher, and also the booster can give a broader antibody level. We are collaborate with the scientists from Peking University, and they actually do more deeply about the antibodies. The coronavac is the inactivated viral vaccines. That means we use the whole viral and inactivated viral particle and with adjuvant to induce the human body to give the antibody, to give the neutralization to induce the neutralization antibody. And those neutralizing antibody actually is a mixture. So some antibody is, for example, anti-RBD and anti-aspartame is more specified on the part of the virus. Some neutralizing antibody actually they can have a much broader neutralization capacities, and that antibody actually is critical and for the different variant. So because they can recognize more variables, no matter its change on the shift on the sequence or the structure of the
Recording in progress.
Of the variables or not. So we found interesting data is after first and second, we found that this kind of antibody, actually percentage of this kind of antibody, actually, generally speaking, are quite low, comparing with the others, more specific antibody. But after the third shot, after the booster, we see, and generally speaking, the general level of neutralizing antibody level increased. But among them, this special antibody can have broader neutralization to the virus. Also, the percentage of such antibody also increased, and that is also give the explain why after booster dose we see for the variant still the titer, the neutralization titer will dropping down, but actually it's much better than the second dose. Previously, they were dropping 5 times, and after third dose, for example, for Delta, they just dropping to the 2 and 3 times, comparing the original variants. And this is just the information I just described. So you can see after previously this class 4 and class 2, class 6, this is a more broader spectrum for the neutralization. In the second dose, after second dose is 20%, but after the third dose is increasing to 45%. And today also I would like to share some real world data, since there are already more than 2 billion doses distributed to the many countries. So we do have a lot of real world data here. I just pick some of them already published in there. Some is in a journal, some in the website of the country's MOH. So first, let's see the Uruguay, and similar with Chile, also Uruguay and purchased and used CoronaVac very early. And I think in early of this year, this country purchased several million doses of CoronaVac. Considering the population in this country also small, just a few million. So they quickly finished the vaccination program on the target population in all the adult population, and then based on their data, they just summarized the effectiveness data 14 days after second dose. Also, they put all because in this country there are 2 major vaccines besides the CoronaVac. Also, another mRNA vaccine used in these countries. So they give the data effectiveness. Although the general indication, general protection of effectiveness for all the COVID cases for CoronaVac a little bit lower, but for the severe cases, actually those vaccines give a very similar result. But considering CoronaVac is mostly used in a more older population, and also the use of the CoronaVac is much early than the mRNA. So that is also, we cannot really directly comparing the data actually. And also just like Alex already mentioned that the safety, considering the safety profile, so Uruguay is quite satisfied by this by the large use of CoronaVac. And actually, I didn't put the Uruguay data, the COVID indication. If you go to their website, you will see they have a very similar situation with Chile. Currently, the indication of COVID is very low in that country. It's 100 per day cases. Next real world data I would like to share is from Turkey. And Turkey also is first several country used the CoronaVac as the main vaccine to running their national vaccination campaign. They are also first. They put the elderly people and the medical care workers as a high risk population. So they first use the vaccine in such population, and those after that they also collect the data. They see no matter from the cases indication, also from the hospital cases due to COVID, before vaccination, after vaccination, we can see the incident rate drop sharply due to this large vaccination program. And another thing I would like to share, actually, Professor Alexis already mentioned that. I think the more comprehensive real-world data is from Chile, because they have a very comprehensive national care system, cover the whole country's population. So they can collect more data, and so this analysis actually covered nearly 10, together with the vaccine people and unvaccinated people, total about more than 10 million population involved in these studies. And these studies keep running for more than 7 months. So far, they are still monitoring the data. And so after 2 months, after they finished the large major vaccination, 2 months, they got the data. The previously, Alexis already mentioned that the effectiveness about, general speaking, about general for the symptomatic COVID cases is 67, and higher for the hospital cases and ICU cases, nearly 85 to 90%. And 3 months data, a little bit dropping for the symptomatic cases to 65.9%. But for the severe cases and the hospital cases, it's still more than 85%. And actually, in the right of the screen, you can see currently also Chile already start the booster dose, because they also found all the symptomatic COVID cases effectiveness already dropping down to 56%. And this is up to 7 months. Actually, average follow-up is more than 5 months. And still, I need to say that because Chile has started the vaccination from elderly people, very old people from 90 years above 100 years, and then step by step for the younger people. So for these elderly people, obviously, the immune response is low, and also the time is longer. So that part of the population actually lower down the whole effectiveness of the whole population. But anyway, after the third dose, because in Chile we also have around 150,000 people already have a booster dose, also with CoronaVac. We are very glad to see, and in the effectiveness is increasing much from 56 to 80%. And from the hospital cases, even after 7 months, the effectiveness for the hospital cases is still 80%, 84%. So from that, we can see even antibody titer dropping down sharply to the very level. The protection for the for the hospital cases and severe cases for this vaccine is still quite high. I think this is because the body membrane, and also because the T cells response, the Professor Alex Purvis already presented. So since the large vaccination already conducted, and in many countries, we also have a chance to see the whole picture about the safety of these vaccines. So so far we have also a robust the pharmacovalence system to monitoring the data from China, from Chile, from Turkey, from Brazil, even some from Malaysia, from Indonesia. We did not see comparing the others inactivated vaccine. We did not see a different. So the total AFI indication and the whole picture is similar with the others, other traditional vaccines. Also, we did not find any risk such as heart disease or any others cell disease. And this is just we put the other vaccine together, and including the other commercial vaccines, such as the hepatitis B and hepatitis A, and also influenza, and also including the other COVID vaccine in the whole pictures about the AEFI data after large vaccination. So we are glad to see that CoronaVac actually has a great safety profile comparing other novel or COVID vaccines. And I think this is really meaningful for the decision maker, especially if you're considering the vaccine will be largely used for the whole population, including the younger people, adults, and also older people. And so the excellent safety and can give a lot of courage to the decision maker to design the national vaccination program. So this is also is actually also give a great support to ourselves, and let's move ahead and to generate others kind of vaccines. Currently, Sinovac also developing the other vaccines, including the multivalent COVID vaccines, and to against the more variant, such as Delta, Mu, and the others variant. So we will keep effort on this, and also we will keep transparent and supply all the data to the different authorities. So that is all, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wenning. Very interesting data from China. For the fact that you have supplied over 2 billion doses globally, that's very impressive. I believe everybody's fully aware that the antibody will start to deplete after 6 months. Good to know that with Sinovac vaccine, regardless, either you do the boosting at 6 or even after 12 months, the capability to increase the antibody level is still very, very high. Interesting also to know that for the pediatric population, the antibody level stays for longer than 6 months. Even after 6 months, it stays above 97%, reflecting that they don't need the booster as soon as per the adults. Yeah, and good to know that if you were to use higher dose for the booster dose, the antibody will stay longer and higher in terms of concentration. And there were a lot of talks about either the booster strategy. People were talking about different variant of concern, whether you have to use different strain to boost the immunity. Proven in your data that with Wuhan strain, they were able to neutralize all kinds of strain effectively. And again, from the real world data to confirm the superiority or the quality of Sinovac vaccines equally as good as the rest of other players. And superior, most importantly, that when it comes to the safety profile, when it comes to adverse event, Sinovac vaccine is superior to among other vaccine COVID-19 available in the world. All right, back to you, Cam.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bat, for making those highlights. As a layman, like every other normal sane people, I Google. And one of the things that will come across what I Google over the recent few days is a piece of a video from Mayo Clinic in the United States of America. And they were explaining about boosters because there's a slight differentiation in America between booster shots and third dose, for example. But actually, it's essentially the same, but the way they categorize it bureaucratically. But at the end of the video, the doctor actually said, it's still early, but we're looking at certain data, and it seems like the inactivated virus might be more effective as compared to the other types of vaccine. So based on that, from Mayo Clinic, I want to ask our good friend from China, thank you so much for sharing almost 1 billion doses with the rest of the world before us. But my question is, with all the data of real world right now, and I imagine that somewhere in China, there's a room full of large screens and you have real-time live data feeding in from all parts of the world where you have your vaccine. For example, have you really seen this again and again where your own version of a whole virus being used as the, as the transport or inactivated virus versus like just the spike or the mRNA? Have you really deep dive into the different aspects in effectiveness in terms of efficacy or otherwise in the difference between the types of real world data and clinical studies data coming back? Mr. Wei Ming Meng.
Yeah. Actually, from ourselves, because there is some limitation from authorities, so and also from the legal issues, we don't have we don't have a data from a mixture different type by using the booster. But actually, there are several studies conducted. And actually, in for example, in Chile, also they used mRNA vaccine and the lab factor vaccine to also to be the booster for the coronavac, the purpose to shot. And the current data also encourage the at least from the effectiveness data. Showing that the effectiveness is higher, and it's quite encouraging, and but actually we also for us because WHO has no matter WHO and the Chinese authorities, they quite clear position on this mixture booster strategy. Although we see a very high level for the antibody titer and effectiveness data, but still from the clinical data is very limited.
Okay.
From more scientific, more deeply, more scientific statistic design from that point. We are actually lack of that strong data to support that.
Okay.
So that's why WHO are quite clear say that they still first they are not that encouraged to do the booster because the whole the vaccine supply, and also for the boosters they also suggest you the same kind of vaccines. For example, they just give the suggestions from WHO SAGE group. I think a couple of days ago for our coronavac.
Yes.
They give the suggestion for the booster for the elderly people and the people with chronic disease, but still they suggest to use the coronavac, use the same vaccines to give the booster. I think this is also major considering from the safety aspect. So as vaccine developers, we are welcome the ideas to have a booster with a different kind of technology approved vaccines. But still, we are willing. We are also willing to collaborate with the scientists and also investigators and trying to get more solid data to support these ideas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wei Ming. But one last quick one before I go to our good friend from Indonesia. Indonesia and Malaysia are so intertwined. But one last thing, because one thing that I find new as a journalist is the part where in your presentation you alluded to and shared us information on the R&D being done together with Peking University on specifically a deep dive into the antibodies and a more specific role that is being singled out. Does this mean that, we do know now, even for the layman, that different geography, different sects of people, different culture have different reactions and stuff? So would the same study, deeper dive, like on antibodies and all this other stuff, also be, Sinovac will be looking at other nations like Malaysia not just on the existing, but also for other studies and R&D like this?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, previously, Professor Alex also sharing a lot of the basic scientific data coming from the T cells response. And we are still collaborate with some more studies. And, due to the confidential reasons, we cannot sharing more data unpublished. But generally speaking, as the vaccine developers, besides we are a company, we are also scientists, because we are currently, we are also vaccine development center from BRICS countries. So we are also undertaking some national R&D project in China. And we have a big team of scientists and to do a lot of basic studies. And meanwhile, we collaborate with such as Catholic University in Chile, also university in Turkey, and so some top university in China. We also have a collaboration with Yale University in US, and for some more studies. So as we are the scientists, I should say we are scientific worker, and do these studies and do more scientific investigation is always great.
Thank you very much for saying that, and I will follow that up with my scientific colleagues, co-moderator Dr. Bat later, and I will also be introducing another scientific expert called Dr. Ajit. He is the head of the vaccine unit there, and Dr. Bat is already smiling. But before I introduce to you the handsome and very intelligent, powerful Dr. Ajit, let us go to our jiran tetangga, rakan serumpun, our very friendly neighbor from across the Straits of Malacca, Dr. Rahman Rostan, the operational director of PT Biopharma Holding, also vice chairman of OIC and the Virus Management Group. Very impressive CV. Pajajaran University, ITB, MBA, doctoral in strategic management from Pajajaran. Bandung has always has a special spot in me, but he has done it all, and he has, been in the committee with the Pharmacists Association, and I'm sure the country of Indonesia relies on him a lot for expert and perspective views. Dr. Rostan, over to you, saudara setangga dan serumpun.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the nice introduction. So, good day, everyone. And before we start, I would like to try to share my screen. Yeah, first of all, we would like to express our gratitude to our colleague from Pharmaniaga, Malaysia, Dr. Badarul Hisham, our last meeting in Medina, if I don't mistaken, yeah. And also colleagues from Sinovac, China, Weining, how are you? Dr. Alexis, speaker from Chile, and Dr. Ajit from Pharmaniaga. Highly appreciate to the committee for inviting us to deliver COVID-19 vaccination update in Indonesia. Also our perspective in vaccination strategy from an industry side. So in this important occasion, it is our honor to share experiences, facts, and background to consider the need of booster shot and vaccination for children. Okay, allow me to share our experiences on the strategy for pandemic vaccine availability for public immunization in the country. So the strategy could be divided into 3 terms: short, mid, and long-term strategies. For the short term, it is crucial to have the proven vaccine for the country immediately, starting with supply of this product. And if it is followed by bulk supply to be filled and finished in local production, it will require technology transfer for downstream process, as well as the quality control method and release process. But it's need to be validated. And Bio Farma is a state-owned company in Indonesia that has a role in providing vaccines for the Indonesian people. We immediately sought partners for us to work with in terms of COVID-19 vaccines availability that have implemented a quality management system in their manufacturing process. The Sinovac Biotech is one of the fastest biotechnology companies in the development of a COVID-19 vaccine. The second strategy is beyond midterm with the goals to achieve the self-reliance on vaccine research and production with the scheme of a national consortium. Collaborate among related stakeholders such as universities and research institutes for seed characterization and also validation. So the local vaccine producer will continue the development stage and do rolling submission to the regulatory authority for documents review. The long-term strategy talking about new platform technology acquirement such as mRNA and viral vector platform. Those are need to be acquired by the local production. The new platform technology required the facility GMP certification, qualification, and also validation. So to achieve the vaccine availability during pandemic, the key points in our perspective in terms of regulatory agility is a clear and harmonized guidance. So many lessons learned we got during the pandemic, the communication with the regulatory authority and with partners for joint R&D, research and development for the vaccines, joint production, and clinical trial collaboration for the vaccine candidate are important points. The quality, safety, and efficacy requirements should be fulfilled with the concern of time limitation. Therefore, using interim report for a stability test, pilot scale validation process or flexible validation timeline, the joint inspection and joint evaluation, using interim report for clinical trial data are very helpful, as well as documents review acceleration for a timely emergency use authorization. During the pandemic, we realized that communication and collaboration need to be sustained to achieve the vaccine self-reliance and resilience. Please allow me to convey several points regarding the story of our collaboration between Biopharma and Sinovac Biotech in providing the COVID-19 vaccine CoronaVac as a final product in August 2020. In the form of phase 3 clinical trials held in multi-centers, implemented in more than one country, together with 4 other countries, Brazil, Chile, Turkey, and Indonesia. The collaboration continues after phase 3 clinical trials. In the provision of the COVID-19 vaccine from Sinovac in the form of bulk and finished products in large quantities, considering that Indonesia needs at least for 100 billion doses to achieve herd immunity. So since December 2020 until September 2021, Biopharma have received more than 200 million doses of vaccine from Sinovac. So in bulk, about 150 million doses, and in finished product, it's about 60 million doses. So for mid and long term, Biopharma is open to collaborating with any party for the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and other vaccine research beyond COVID-19. There are several challenges we faced due to the pandemic situation. In the country with a geographically unique, such as Indonesia with 1,000 islands, need another flexible arrangement for transportation and distribution to those areas to speed up the vaccination program. So the data show us as of 11 October, in Indonesia, about 100 million people has first shot of vaccination. So more than 57 million people got fully vaccinated, means a second vaccination, and about 1 million health workers get a booster. So total target of national vaccination program, about 208 million people. We would like to share data compiled in a first quarter 2021 that Sinovac vaccinated to health workers in Jakarta prevents symptomatic, hospitalized, and death cases of COVID-19 more than 90% effectiveness. The target of population to vaccinated begin with the age of 18 to 59 years old and followed by elderly segments at the age of more than 60 years old. As of now, the Sinovac and Pfizer vaccine have been approved for emergency use authorization by the Indonesian FDA for use in children aged 12 years and above. Consideration from Indonesian experts, the perspective that more clinical trials are necessary to determine the proper and safe vaccines for children. The deployment of COVID-19 vaccination in children is important to reach herd immunity, but it depends on each country situation. Let's say the epidemic and clinical situation, the vaccination coverage in adults and elderly, the gradual deployment according to age and high-risk group prioritization, and of course, the availability of the vaccines. Our estimation is after coverage in adults reach more than 70%, we will start with the vaccination for children, and also depends on the human resources. So children might not be burned as is in adults, but however, experts agree that in order to achieve herd immunity and life without COVID-19, all population need to be vaccinated, including children. A social media survey in Indonesia asking to more than 1,000 parents about the future of Indonesian children post-pandemic. In the communities, this pandemic has so many impacts to the life aspect, especially to children. Mostly impacted to social skills, education, physical and mental health, and school disruption and limited social interaction potentially affect the mental health of children and adolescents. So we get the data that is about 78% parents agreed to get their children vaccinated once the vaccine becomes available. And more than 46% parents agreed to send their children to school if the school implementing the strict health protocols. This is interesting that more than 50% parents disagree that Indonesian children might be more successful academically if the pandemic cannot be handled. And as mentioned before, the Sinovac and Pfizer vaccine have been approved for emergency use authorization by the Indonesian FDA for use in children aged 12 years and above. From this table, we could see that 6 products has been approved for AUA and used for vaccination program in Indonesia, namely Sinovac, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Janssen. We are now ongoing process for registration variation for Sinovac for age 3 to 17 years old. The related documents has been submitted to Indonesian NRA to phase 1 and 2 in population age 3 to 17 years, and it shows the good immune and safety profile. While the phase 3 global trial to start in South Africa, Chile, Philippines, Malaysia, and Kenya. Please, Wei-Ning, correct me if I'm wrong, but we hopefully that those documents will be available soon. So, the current status of booster dose vaccination the administration of a booster dose for healthcare workers has started since last July with either Sinovac or Moderna. And it's given in 3 months to 6 months after the second dose. Consideration for booster dose, aside from the surge of cases in Indonesia, like Dr. Alexis and Dr. Weining mentioned, the antibody persistence 6 months post-vaccination is a decline. And also the higher antibody response post-booster dose, we need to take a look at the study of the Sinovac vaccine booster dose. It shows a high increase of antibody titers post the third dose, which indicates a good immune memory elicited from primary doses of Sinovac vaccines. And Indonesia aims at completing COVID-19 vaccination for 208 million people for a population above 12 years of age by the January next year. And the booster shots becomes available once the target of the national vaccination program is reached. And we hope that the vaccination for elementary students is planned to start in the first quarter next year, inshallah. So I will stop my sharing, and we're looking forward to have further discussion in this session. So we need to work together, get healthy and prosperity together, no one left behind. I thank you for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, Pak Rahman, for giving us the insight of what's going on in Indonesia, where the population is about 276 million, whereby PT Bio Farma playing a critical role in supporting Indonesian government for the COVID-19 vaccination, of which you, together with the Sinovac, is a key suppliers to the vaccination in the country, except for recently now that you have Moderna, Sinopharm, and Janssen to be part of the players. Yeah. PT Bio Farma is known for a very long history of expertise in vaccine development and manufacturing. Over 130 years of history, started as a Pasteur Institute 130 years ago. Yeah, and thank you for sharing with us that Indonesia playing a critical role generating clinical data, not only for the adults, but also to support the usage of Sinovac vaccine for the children. Now, good to hear that you are submitting the dossier for the use for children of age 3 to 17. And again, currently doing phase 3 trial for the children below 3 years old. We look forward to have more data so that the same scenario can be also applied in Malaysia. Over to you, Cam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt. And I would like to follow that up on that. Dr. Rastan, thank you so much for saying we are all in this together. Here we keep on hearing all of government, all of society, but that must also apply to all of nations and all of people around the world. And we're so glad that we have close ties with Indonesia. Clearly, there are many things that we could learn from Indonesia on this respect. But just on the fact that, you're also the vice chairman OIC and the vaccine manufacturing group. When you give the slide that shows the survey on the parents' willingness to enroll their children in vaccination, right up until, whether it will affect their studies and the quality of their studies. People around the world knows this, that Indonesia is the most populous Muslim majority nation in the world. And the halal aspects, Dr. Rahman Rostan, is that also another factor in all these surveys that you look at? Because I think that's quite a crucial in these parts of the world, especially for Malaysia and Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kamharon. So you are right. As a country with the most Muslim people in the world, Indonesia also consider the halal aspect. But for the vaccine and medicine, we realize that quality, safety, and efficacy is the first priority, the Toyiban aspect. Yeah. And when we try to find the right partner to collaborate, and then we meet Sinovac, We also ask our Ulama Council to also audit not only our NRA, but also the Ulama Council. And we go to the site in Beijing, and our expert in auditor in Indonesian NRA, BPOM, and also the auditor from Ulama Council, they do the audit and all the aspects they review from the seed of the vaccine, starting from the development, and the list of materials, also the list of equipment used. And Alhamdulillah, they found that no doubt, and the Sinovac vaccines get the halal certification from Ulama Council in Indonesia.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. M. Rahman Rostan. I just would like to weave in that because halalan toyiban is not just about whether it's clean or not, but the holistic aspect. It saves lives and it stops people from suffering, being intubated and all those stuff. But we got get into that later if we have the time. I would like now, if I bring Dr. Bat, the dashing Richard Gere of pharmaceutical industry in Malaysia, I have a bigger weapon also. He's like, the ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, in terms of talent. And we're so lucky that one of the world-renowned expert, Dr. Ajit Pal Singh, who has very well-experienced, well-traveled CV. He's a medical doctor by training. He's a vaccine specialist. And he has a postgraduate degree in public health, doctoral degree in infectious disease epidemiology. Remember, one of the reasons Taiwan managed this thing very well also because their former vice president had a John Hopkins alumni, just like Dr. Bat, in epidemiology and this stuff. So talent is very critical for the studies. And more than 20 clinical studies that Dr. Ajit Pal has been involved with in Asia, in Africa, in South America. He has publications in respected journals, and you can Google more, but what I've given is enough to prove that he is the intercontinental ballistic missile to fight SARS-CoV-2. So to give the Malaysian local relevant perspective, the regional, from this point of the world and the global, Dr. Ajit Pal Singh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Kamarul. I'm really flattered for the introduction you gave just now. Many thanks to our earlier speakers, Dr. Alexis, Mr. Wining, and Mr. Rahman. I would like to give a brief perspective of Malaysia and would like to touch on three aspects of what next. As we know, Malaysia already have close to half a dozen vaccine licensed. Malaysia started its vaccination program early this year in Q1. Though we have a few vaccines available, but the government vaccination program mainly used two vaccines, Sinovac vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. We have now close to 90% 18 and above vaccinated through the vaccination program, which was controlled by Ministry of Health. And recently we started pediatric vaccination from age 12 and above. But what next? So I will try to cover a few aspects of the booster. Basically on the three aspects. One, who should need booster, and at when it should be given, and and which booster should be given, touching on the mixing of the booster or the vaccines for the booster. Going back to the countries who have started vaccination earlier, you see this, irrespective of vaccine, Israel, Uruguay, Chile, Iceland, Turkey, they are the countries who have started using booster already. There are more than 25 countries who are using booster so far, but Israel has actually used 42% of population with the booster vaccine. Turkey, another country which has approximately vaccinated 100 million doses, has given booster to 9 million population. What we see in these countries who have started vaccination earlier, that there is a decline on antibody response. And as shown by Dr. Alexis and Mr. Wining in the slides, by 6 to 8 months of age, we do have decline in antibody level. And when that is the time when the breakthrough infections probably starts coming in. And we have seen this in Israel, we have seen this in Singapore, we have seen this in other countries. And probably in Malaysia, which has started vaccinating sometime Q2 this year, 6 months down the road, by end of this year, we may see those kind of infections happening here. So the right time for a booster is actually 6 months or later. And depending on what population you want to boost, the data is still evolving. We don't have enough data on different populations, but I think to begin with, we need booster for the frontliners, we need booster for elderly, we need booster for immunocompromised and the special population who are at high risk. And that is the population needing booster. But at the end of the day, I believe that everyone will be requiring a booster. So that's the one you need a booster for. Touching on the mixing of doses, we don't have much data on the mixing of vaccines. What has been done, mixing is not new. People in the past, as a vaccinologist, we know that there are some vaccines which get inherently benefited when you mix it. They are mainly live vaccines or vector vaccines. But what do we have on mixing of COVID vaccines? We don't have enough data. Initially, several countries, several Ministry of Health started mixing with the primary vaccination series, basically due to 3 reasons. One, the supply of vaccine. They didn't have enough supply of vaccine, so they started using another vaccine to complete the series. Also, later, because of the side effects, some of the vaccines were showing side effects, so they thought that if we get 1 dose of one particular vaccine and give another one, we may have less side effects. And then also the cost of vaccines, which was kind of determining whether the country should mix or not. However, data is very limited. But one of the most scientifically designed study, COMCO, which is being done in UK for mixing of vaccine, have given us 2 main findings. Still, the final data has to be published, but we know that giving vaccine A followed by B is not same as B followed by A. So we cannot just mix any vaccine. It has to be scientifically proven before we start mixing it. Turkey being one of the top 5 countries who have started giving booster, and they have successfully demonstrated that when you give Sinovac recipients a Sinovac booster, the effectiveness in real world is much better compared to Sinovac getting another vaccine. Though the immunogenicity, the antibody response is higher when you mix, but in real world, the effectiveness is actually indicating that mixing should not be done for booster doses. Of course, the data is evolving. We have recommendations from FDA, we have recommendations from CDC, WHO. As of now, the guidance is if you have enough vaccine, you stay to the same one. So, summarizing on the way forward, a booster is recommended for all. To begin with, from the high-risk frontliner population, and then later on to be given to everyone. And finally, what scientific data suggests so far, to be given as a same booster for what has been given as a primary one, to have the best effectiveness from the vaccine. So this is what Mr. Kamrul might take on the booster use of vaccine, especially Malaysia and also other countries.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Ajit. Dr. Bhatt, I saw you making a bit of an eye look at Dr. Ajit just now. Any one point you want to pick up from there?
Okay, I think Dr. Ajit have explained it in detail that because I have the same query related to the use of different vaccine for booster dose. It was in the news yesterday, the case in Thailand.
Okay.
These children someone received a booster dose of they mixed the vaccine. The second vaccine was AstraZeneca. Right. So it was a sad ending. So basically.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Bhatt, why don't we ask our 3 international experts, maybe starting from Chile, they had a lot of lead compared to us in administering booster and having data from clinical and real world data. Dr. Alexis, can you weave in your expert opinion on the mixing of different vaccine for the booster shots?
Well, according to the effectiveness of the booster shot, just all of them have been over 80%. So a third dose with Sinovac is over 80%, as Weni showed in his slides, and but also a third dose with with AstraZeneca or Pfizer actually shown very good effectiveness data as well as safety. But one of the reasons why we decided to work with the inactivated vaccine together with Sinovac is because, as we shown on the data that we have submitted or published, we can see a more comprehensive immune response, not only to the spike protein, but also to other antigens such as the N protein, the M protein, E. So there are, I would say, more targets, of course, on an inactivated vaccine. So when the booster, the immune response triggered by the booster shot is measured, then you can see all those components of the immune response, and that's what we're seeing in our clinical study. Of course, if you go with a booster shot with a vaccine that is based on spike, you will get tons of anti-spike antibodies, but it's not quite diverse as what you get with a booster with an inactivated booster. And in terms of effectiveness, works actually pretty well.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Alexis. I want to bridge that to China. But before I go to our good friend, Wen Mang, I would like to call upon the members of the media participating and listening attentively to all our experts here, that you can put your questions into the chat box, and I will be reading all that into the discussion. So our good friend from China, what's the discussion in Sinovac and also in China about the potential of mixing different types of vaccine for the booster?
Yeah, so far, just like I mentioned that our authorities have a quite clearly position because currently they don't have data to support the mixture booster strategy. So China authorities, NMPA, and also Ministry of Health still suggest use the same kind of vaccine and for the booster, and even prefer to same brand of vaccine for the booster.
Yeah. From a layman's understanding, Mr. Wenning, forgive me if I'm very ignorant about this, but there are certain thoughts that we can Google and find that rather than give the same generation of vaccine, why don't maybe we wait for a few more months of data, and maybe by that time, vaccine manufacturers like Sinovac has gotten to a new, way improved version, reacting to like the Delta and other variants, and that will be quote unquote the booster shot or a new shot. What's your view on that?
Well, actually, the booster strategy is the little bit complicated issue, and that's why and WHO actually they don't also suggest to do the booster.
Right. Yes.
And so different countries have different situation, and and previously I mentioned that if the country currently is still suffering the peak of the pandemic, and for the high risk population, especially elder people and healthcare workers, and also the people with chronic disease, and those people are actually is very important. Let them to get full protected as early as possible. So it'll be a little bit urgent for to use the booster dose for those population. But for the general population, it's really depend on the situation. And such as the country like Chile, they already finished almost 90% coverage to those vaccination. And then it's a time for them to considering for the boosters. And even in China, there is no disease here, but because the vaccination rate also very high for the second primary vaccination to those. So the government are also considering And previously, they already suggest also for the high-risk population to get the booster dose.
Okay.
So,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the situation.
Cool. I would like to go to Pak Dr. Rahman Rostan sekarang. You know, one of the reasons behind, and it has been said here also, why WHO, asked for the moratorium and all, because of the inequality of vaccine distribution. And one key part of that is the ability to, one, manufacture, and second, to distribute, which in your long, short, and long, medium-term plans, we have seen the outline of the self-sufficiency in R&D and manufacturing. Sharing that further, could you give a bit more explanation on that? Because we understand the difficulty of distribution, thousands of islands, but there is also an advantage because on the island of Borneo, we do share similar geography for Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. So imagine if 3 countries work together to safeguard and boost the protection of all the people of Borneo, regardless of nationality, because it makes sense for distribution and manufacturing, for example. Just one example of how if we work together, because the virus doesn't respect any borders and any nationalities. So please, can you weave into the topic of, making available, more accessible, more equitable, the manufacturing and distribution?
Okay, so you are right, Mr. Kamharon. We need to collaborate regionally and also globally, because since the pandemic we face all around the globe, and we have a limitation of capacity of the COVID-19 vaccines. So we need to have a right partner, not only to supply the final products, but also to supply the intermediate product like bulk. And also the important things is the willingness of a transfer of technology, a transfer of QC test method, and then we can share the responsibility at least regionally. Let's say Pharmaniaga in Malaysia and also Bio Farma in Indonesia, we can work together for sharing the vaccines and also the distribution method. Talking about the booster that we are talking today, so there are 6 vaccines used in Indonesia. It has been approved for emergency use authorizations and used for the people in Indonesia, Sinovac, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and also Janssen. So one thing to be considered is practical in distribution. We need to maintain the cold chain. So means that all the district, all the province need to be ready for the cold chain.
Yes.
Because as we may know that there's a variety of cold room temperature requirements for all vaccines. Yeah. I agree with your question and suggestion, Mr. Kamharun. We need to work together for production and also for distribution.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pak Doctor. First question from our media friends. I think this is actually from TMI, from Ravin Palanisamy, directly to Dr. Ajit, but others feel free to weave in if you can. Since we still lack data on mixing of vaccines, what are the likely risks one might face, if any? Dr. Ajit.
As I said earlier, the most well-designed study which is being done on mixing of vaccine, not only for booster but for priming also, is CONCOV study in UK. And they have demonstrated then a vaccine when mixed A and B, the side effects are different when you give AA or BB. And of course, in some of the cases, I don't want to name the vaccines, the data is still under review, will be published soon. In some of the cases, when you mix A and B, the side effects are much higher of the cumulative 2 different mixing compared to AA only. So there is a risk of high side effect. And as Dr. Bhatt just mentioned, we have a report from Thailand yesterday, subject receiving a kill vaccine followed by a vector vaccine actually died because of coagulation complication from the second dose. It's risky. It's not demonstrated that what could be the long-term effects and the short-term side effects. So as of now, the data is still evolving, and we don't know how risky it will be.
Dr. Alexis, if you can share your expert opinion on this.
The question was kind of breaking up. Can you repeat it?
The question is, since the data on the mixing using different type of vaccine is still, not that much out there, what are the likely risks if we do mix and we do give it to the population? What are the risks involved?
Well, I think the vaccines are all still under research. So scientific research is still in progress. According to the data that we have obtained here in Chile, giving a booster shot with a different vaccine that the first and the second dose has provided good effectiveness and good safety. But still, I think there is research to be done, and also, of course, follow-up of the people who have received those shots. So other countries, especially in Europe, they have also mixed different vaccine types or vaccine platforms, and results have been, again, positive. But I think still, research needed, and also current, a systematic follow-up is important. In our clinical study, we have given a third shot with Sinovac, and the safety profile is very good. For pretty much everybody decided to stay for a third shot in the Sinovac study in Chile, and both immunogenicity and safety are pretty solid.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alexis. And as we go towards the end, I will still accept any more questions coming from the media. But as we go towards the end, I would like to take this is maybe not so scientific, but it has been acknowledged by the World Health Organization that infodemic is as damaging as the pandemic itself. The lack of awareness, the clear misinformation. So I would like to have maybe a short view from each of the three speakers from our international expertise, maybe starting with China. How do you look at the misinformation and the anti-vax movement? Because even in the most developed and powerful nations, the more developed and advanced, like America, 20 to 23% of their population are still not vaccinated. And then now in America, calling it the pandemic of the unvaccinated. And this is a country where the GDP is very high, the technology advancement is high, but literacy and awareness seems not to go uniformly across their population. So what's your view on this, looking at China and because you look at the global arena, how do you see this, the information and the disinformation and the awareness?
Yeah, well, that is really a pity information regarding those anti-vaccine ideas or a group of people, and considering this is the whole world in the pandemic. So currently the vaccine is almost the only high effective weapon against this pandemic to protect people's self and also people's family and around the people. So obviously the increase in the vaccine is the key to protect all the people and to end this pandemic. So, well, the world is complicated, and the country is also complicated, and so I think what we can do is just to keep everything more transparent, keep the data transparent, and the awareness policy strategy is transparent, and let everybody understanding on all the information related. And then I believe, and most of people still should contribute to against this pandemic. So as a vaccine developers and manufacturers, we are always be ready and to provide the other vaccine. But this is our it's our work. It's also our work.
Correct.
So that is my comments.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can work together, especially for literature in Bahasa Malaysia with Sinovac. Dr. Alexis, Chile has a lot of advantages that maybe many other countries do not have. When I look at winning slides on, Chile has a national health insurance database that gives really good tracking and feedback back. How is, because if there are people who don't even want vaccine, then how do we push the booster shots to them, for example? So in the experience of Chile, how is this managed?
Well, in general, the Chilean population, they are very confident of vaccines. And that's been the case also during the pandemic. I think there is a lot of effort from the scientific community and from the universities and from the government to provide as much scientific evidence as possible for having the population making the right decision, because vaccination here is volunteer. So one thing that you mentioned in your question that had to do with infodemics, we did a pretty good study showing that the social network, different type of platforms for social network could be pretty tricky, because many people go and try to find information there. So we're trying to promote the notion that having more scientific evidence in this, in Twitter, Facebook, etc., so people can get information with some scientific basis. And also we've been trying to tell scientists and medical doctors to be careful when they speak about vaccines, because some people that are, for vaccination, they provide so many complex examples or complex explanations. They sound very confusing, and we call them inhibitors of vaccination sometimes. Even they're trying to provide a rational explanation for how vaccines work. Sometimes they are confusing to the people, and they at the end are inhibiting vaccination, even if they are, for vaccines, for the vaccination. And we are, about to submit that work as a publication, because I think it's very impressive how careful we all need to be when we provide information about such an important public health tool as vaccines.
Correct. I would like to go to Pak Doktor, tapi sebelum itu, before that, Dr. Bat, I think the organizers are kind enough, just like football, that have been impacted by the pandemic, to give us a bit of injury time or extra time. Are we okay on that?
Yeah, we're good.
We're supposed to finish at 11, but this is a very esteemed panel, and there's a lot of information here that I think should be correlated. And just a bit more, Pak Doktor, it's easy for armchair critics to say, communicate better and inform better. As we have heard from the good Dr. Alexis, sometimes by trying to do good, you confuse people even more. Imagine that for a very diverse population like Indonesia, hundreds of millions, geography from Sabang to Merauke, different time zones, many different ethnic languages and sub-ethnic languages. What has been the experience of Indonesia, and from your point of view, when even if you have the vaccines ready, the booster vaccine shots ready, but you cannot make the horse drink the water? So maybe we can learn from your insights on this.
Yeah, talking about the communication or infodemic. So we need to identify what is the reasons for people that doubt to has vaccinated, and what is the reason for anti-vaccine movement. Let's say in Indonesia, for example, we face the halal issue, and then we work together with the ulama council and also with the madrasah and also with the masjid meeting. Alhamdulillah, it is solved. So the point is we need the literacy, educate people, the transparency need to be simultaneously implemented.
Okay, understood. Nanti kita bersembang bagaimana kita boleh buat macam Wali Songo. What I was saying in the Malay language was to Pak Doctor, there's these old stories of how in the old days, ages ago, it was also communicated through arts and culture, for example. But now I want to give every one of my panelists a chance to give their ending summary to their last points. But before that, the ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, Dr. Ajit, on infodemic. I've never heard you comment on this, so I'm going to force you as a moderator privilege to give your input on this, because you're a world talent that has chosen to help us build frontline defense and capabilities in Malaysia. How do you look at literacy and awareness and its crucial part in making activations like booster shots really practical?
Mr. Kam, you're right. Infodemics is very important and very critical to boost the literary knowledge of general public. We may have the right vaccine, we may have the right booster, but if the uptake is low and if the sentiments are different, then it will be difficult for any vaccination program to be successful. I think the anti-vaccine lobby is there, and we should not be too much worried about that. We focus on the one who are either neutral or pro-vaccine. And if the majority of the population is anyway vaccinated, we achieve our effect. We achieve the herd effect, we achieve stopping of transmission, we achieve low in mortality, morbidity, and reduce the burden. Of course, anti-vaccine has to be addressed, but now the issue is the information. There's too much information on media, on Google, on WhatsApp, on Twitter, and there's both plus and minus. The right thing is what we have been doing. I'm from India, so what my colleagues in India are doing, they are advising everyone, go and talk to your healthcare provider. Don't go by the media, don't go by the report, don't go by the news. Talk to two people, healthcare provider or the one who has disease. Now, in this time, everyone has a family or a friend who has had disease. So you go and talk to the person who has disease and ask him what he has gone through, and go and talk to a healthcare provider and ask him what is available for him, rather than going to newspaper, media, WhatsApp messages. It has been promoted in various platforms in India. Talk to patient, talk to doctor.
Okay. So to make doctor more friendly, like Dr. Ajit, I will try to put Dr. Ajit on TikTok to talk about this. But that's for another day. So now I would like to give 1 minute each to my international speakers. And I would like to reverse the order. I started from the furthest away. Now I want to start from the closest, then going to the furthest away. Pak Doctor, tolong berikan sedikit akhir kata-kata. Maybe you can give the last few points that you want to, maybe in 1 or 2 minutes.
Thank you. Less than 1 minute. Combat the pandemic is everyone responsible. So it's time for collaboration instead of competition. Work together, get healthy and prosperity together. No one left behind. Thank you and shukran for your attention.
Shukran. That is Pak Dr. Rahman Rostan, the Operational Director of PT Biopharma Holding, also the Vice Chairman, OIC, and the Vaccine Manufacturing Group. Thank you so much for your expert views. Thank you so much for sharing. And now, your I would like to another great friend of the country and of the world from China, Mr. Wei Mingmeng. Over to you.
Hello. Thank you. Well, what I want to say is actually in the past 2 years, and we are working together with all the partners and really working very hard and contribute all of the effort. And currently, we achieved some milestones, and glad to see the vaccine play a very important role in different countries. And so far, just mentioned that we are the scientific workers, and we are still quite open to collaborate with all the scientists, also the scientists in Malaysia, and trying to work more deeply and to get more data. And well, as we in the past 2 years, we working hard, but we did not speak a lot actually. We published the data, but actually, really, we don't hold media conference like this, and I don't think, maybe just 1 or 2 times. So also, I hope by this conference, more people can understand what we have done, and keep the confidence on the vaccines, and keep the confidence in Sinovac and also Pharmaniaga.
That's great to know. So my question to you, just a bit. So are you happy right now with the level of cooperation with Malaysia? And from what you said, I think there's more coming in the future.
Yeah, for sure. We will have the collaborations not only for COVID vaccines. Also, we are currently designing a very long-term collaboration to cover more vaccines, and for this country, also for other countries.
Yes. Just for the record, Pharmaniaga's relationship with Sinovac was way before the pandemic was even heard of in these parts of the world. They have been collaborating on R&D and stuff for many, many years. Thank you so much, Mr. Wei Mingmeng. And I will take you up on that. Now is the time also to communicate more. I and Dr. Bat will cook up something, and we'll talk to you and how to communicate more and more. And last but not least, Dr. Alexis Kalagis. I've been admiring Chile as an editor-in-chief before when I was there in the newsroom last year. Been looking at data, but never had the opportunity to talk to anyone. So I really appreciate what you are doing. I wish I could give you more time, but maybe the last 1 minute for you to give your final say on this.
Yeah, so three main messages. First, vaccines are a result of science, and currently, since all vaccines are under scientific research, so it's important to collaborate between different countries, between industry and university, to work together in providing safe and effective vaccines for COVID-19. Second main message has to do with supply. It's important that in addition of creating vaccines and doing all the research to show their safety and effectiveness, it's important to have sufficient vaccines. There are many countries that have little access to vaccines. We've been fortunate in Chile, thanks to the collaboration mainly with Sinovac. But I think it's important that as human beings, we need to collaborate in trying to make vaccines available for everybody. And third is the message that we give to people, the confidence from people to vaccines.
Yes.
People need to feel confident about vaccines, and that requires a lot of transparency of the research we do, the good results, also the not so good results. I think it's important to be very transparent in communicating the progress of science, and if we do so, people are going to feel more secure about taking the vaccines, and that will help countries where they have a lot of vaccines, but there is lack of trust on vaccines, as is the case in some countries in North America and in Europe.
Correct. Thank you so much. 3 main key points that Dr. Alexis has given us. I could not agree more, because remember September when the United States of America wanted to deliberate and give the final verdict on the booster shots. The FDA had a 7-hour live session. Anybody could go into it. 7 hours of deliberation from NGOs to the expert group to whoever else they were in there. So that is one key point. But I want to give Dr. Ajit maybe one bit last say before I get Dr. Bhatt in to say goodbye. Dr. Ajit, just 1 or 2 sentences. I'll give you this, because all the way from India, you chose Malaysia. I'm so honored. You are one of the world's foremost expert on this.
Malaysia is one of the best country to live in. I mean, I will agree on that. Of course, you also agree on that. And just to summarize what other speakers have said, the trust on the vaccine and the trust on the vaccination program. Moving forward, so the world is not equal. We know some part of the world we still have people vaccinated, only maybe 20-30%. Some part of the world we are not talking about booster vaccine. So somehow, if we all could come together and collaborate to have vaccine equity. I'm not sure how Malaysia or how Famaniaga can help. We would like to help other parts of the world by probably supplying vaccine from here if we are vaccinated and if we have done our job. So as said by Dr. Rahman, the collaboration for the region, for the world, important. I'm not protected if my neighbor is not protected, though I may take the booster. So we have to think beyond our country, beyond our region, and as a global citizen. I mean, that's my concluding remark.
Well said, the head and the expert in biologics and vaccine for Famaniaga. But Dr. Bhatt, the John Hopkins guy, is the expert in manufacturing, biotech and everything. Dr. Bhatt, please sum that up, what Dr. Ajit sort of alluded to. People talk about big pharma, but in Malaysia, Famaniaga is the big pharma. So would Famaniaga, for example, work with Sinovac to, Sinovac cannot on their own in China manufacture for everyone. They got 2 billion. You expect them to do 20 billion. So of course they need to partner. Would Malaysia, for example, help them in Southeast Asia? Please allude to that and then close it for us.
Okay, yeah, it was a good start. Pandemic COVID-19 is a tragedy, I would say, but along the way, it gives an opportunity for a company like Famaniaga to be part of the solution, not the problem. Yeah, we're happy that we are ready. Like what Professor Alexis mentioned, how they started, or even PT Biopharma, their relationship with Sinovac was much earlier. They have the capability, they have the people, they have the talent and the facility. They were actually involved. And Famaniaga, in a sense, like we're also lucky that our readiness, our people, talents, and capability came in the right time where we can be part of the solution. Evident for the past few months in 2021, Famaniaga, with the support of Sinovac and the rest of the strategic partner, we were able to provide the solution ahead of the time. So far, we have delivered more than 20 million doses to the government. We contributed to about half of the vaccination program in the country. Now we talk about extending that to the children, to boost the dose. And Mr. Wenning rightly so mentioned that this is not just the end, but starting of a future collaboration to fight diseases, not just a pandemic, but also other types of vaccine. Famaniaga, our aspiration to be a bigger player and global company in vaccine, inshallah.
So Dr. Bhatt, now that you have proven that not only are you good at biotech and manufacturing, but you can also be like me, a moderator. So on the sideline, we'll talk to Wenning Meng on the infodemic and maybe how we can bring more experts and transparency into the game, especially for Bahasa Melayu or the Malay language and the Southeast Asian side. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt. I put him in the spot. He hardly do this role of co-moderating, but today I think he has done exceptionally well. Please
Thank
give a
you.
big hand of applause wherever you are listening and tuning in to all my speakers, including my co-moderator, because I think for the last 2 hours, they have managed to give us more information, more science, more data, and more understanding. Thank you so much for this. This is a key part of the world going back to normal. And for me personally, I want to end. I have many heroes for this pandemic, from people like Dr. Bhatt and Dr. Ajit, right up to all the three international speakers. I have Dr. Mike Ryan, and it's very easy to see WHO in other ways, but I see them as being responsible for the world, and they have done tremendously. So I want to quote Dr. Mike Ryan on this. Speed trumps perfection. When we talk about booster and we talk about children being vaccinated, I would like personally to agree with Dr. Mike Ryan, because why he said that, we have to be fast. We have to have no regrets. If you need to be right before you move, you will never win. And SARS-CoV-2 move very fast. We don't know what the variants are going to be. We're not going to know what the next pandemic is going to be, but we can be prepared, and be prepared with us all in the same boat is, I think, the best way to go from science, from public health, and even from the information and communication point of view. So again, thank you so much to the audience for keeping up with us for the past 2 hours, members of the media, subject matter experts, and other interested parties that have tuned in. And again, thank you to all my key panelists from Chile, Dr. Alexis, Wei Ming from China, Pak Doctor from Indonesia, and of course, Dr. Ajit and Dr. Bhatt. Thank you. Thank you to the organizer from Maniaga Berhad, and I'll see you guys in another discussion to promote literacy and understanding on the science and data of this pandemic very, very soon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Terima kasih.
Good day.
Thank you.
Bye.